A woman in simple clothes is despised in front of everyone, without knowing who she really is. Her son is humiliated at an elite school, but no adults stand up for him. When the boundaries of silence are crossed, she makes a move that changes the entire city. And then everyone who used to look down on her begins to look differently. Don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss new stories. Saint. James Academy stood on a hill like a museum of prim rules and polite cruelty. The red brick, the stained glass windows in the library, the columns at the main entrance, everything screamed about the nobility that was taught from a young age. Children in identical blue jackets got out of cars that did more than just drill the asphalt, but declared their last name, bank account, and future rights. Among them was Elliot, in a beige coat, holding a lunchbox in his hand, where he had a homemade peanut butter and apple sandwich. Clara stood by the car and watched him walk, not slouched, but a little faster than usual, as if he wanted to become invisible until he reached the entrance. Al, wait. He turned around. His blonde hair was slightly disheveled, his cheek dimpled from sleep. Everything is fine, Mom. I know. I just wanted to wish you a gentle day. He nodded. He smiled, but his gaze was already searching to see if any of his classmates were seeing him. You don't have to eat the whole lunch, she said. Just if you're hungry, I'll eat it. I promise. She didn't say, if you hide it under your desk again, it's okay. She didn't say, if they tease you again, it's not your fault. He knew, and she knew that he knew. Women were already gathering in the parents' area, some with fur coats, some with heels that were beyond common sense, all with the same look, not at Clara, through her. Good morning, Clara, said Mrs. Quinn, smiling like a pink-handled knife. In linen again today? It's comfortable. And it breathes, Clara answered calmly. Of course, especially when there's no need to hide the price of the seam, chimed in the second, named Callie. But you know, I've always liked simplicity. It's not given to everyone, Clara answered and turned away. They didn't speak anymore. But Clara felt the gazes gathering behind her, as if she carried a stain with her. And even if she wasn't wearing anything flashy, her lack of status screamed loudest of all. That day, when she returned home, the kitchen smelled of basil. She was chopping tomatoes for sauce when a text came from her homeroom teacher. Elliot left his lunch in the classroom. We offered him some from the cafeteria, but he refused. Please discuss this with him. She looked at the screen for a long time. Then she turned off the stove. She covered the bowl with a towel and went back. He wasn't on the playground. He wasn't in the library either. She found him in a nook behind the gym. He was sitting on a bench, his legs dangling. His backpack was lying next to him. Elliot. He flinched, but was not afraid. Mom, what are you doing here? I came to give you your lunch. I don't want. Why? He was silent. Then he said, They film me when I eat, and then they post it. They laugh. They say that I eat like a poor person, like a friend of the canteen. Clara sat down next to him. She folded her hands. Are you hungry? Yes. Then eat it. Not because you have to, but because it's yours. Something with love. Do you know what care smells like? He looked at her. How? Like peanut butter with cinnamon. And an apple that's not sour because I only choose the ones that smell like the sun. He opened the box. He ate slowly, but he ate. The next day, when she dropped him off at school, the same women were standing at the entrance again. Clara got out of the car, took Elliot's hand, and led him to the door. There, he stopped. You don't have to. I know, but I want them to see that I'm here, with you, and I'll stay. He squeezed her fingers. Then he let go, and he left. In the evening, he sat down at the table and said, They put a tray on my head. She froze, quietly, without a sound. In the buffet, one boy. His mother was the one in the coat, Mrs. Quinn. Everyone laughed. Teachers? They pretended not to hear. Are you okay? I don't know. She didn't call. She didn't go to school the next day. And the day after that, she came. And asked for the camera footage. That's impossible, the director said. We have a privacy policy. You have a child covered in food, and a woman who gave birth to him. I am not a threat. I am a reminder. You shouldn't. Do you know who my husband is? He fell silent. I don't need to give you his last name. I want you to understand. I'm not here because of him. I am here because I have to, and I will come back, tomorrow. And you will decide who you are, a teacher or an extra. She left, quietly. But the entire office remained in that silence, because Clara Bellamy did not raise her voice. But it remained longer than any scream. After her conversation with the director, Clara did not sleep all night. The house was dark, there was a fog outside, viscous, as if the city was breathing through gauze. She sat by the kitchen window with a mug of cold tea and watched the clock on the stove slowly counting down the seconds until morning. Everything was in place. The curtains, the folded linen, the books on the shelf, the nightlight in the nursery. Only something inside her shifted, softly, without a crack. But irreversibly. In the morning, she got Elliot ready for school, as always. She tied his scarf, adjusted his hood. He didn't ask how her visit had gone. But when she hugged him at the car, he suddenly said quietly, I'm glad you went. I had to. I thought you wouldn't. Because you're calm. Calm isn't silence, Al. It's when you speak without losing yourself. He nodded and left. The school greeted him the same way. Neat rows of students in jackets, glittering staircases, teachers who didn't look him in the eye. In the classroom, he noticed that the seat next to him was empty again. Those who had been sitting next to him yesterday had moved. The gym teacher pretended not to notice how one of the boys, Jason, the son of that same Mrs. Quinn, knocked Elliot down with his shoulder in the locker room. He turned around only when Elliot was already standing, picking up his fallen backpack. Everything is fine? Yes, Al said. Fell on his own. He wasn't lying. He just knew that the truth wouldn't be heard now anyway. Meanwhile, whispers began to circulate around town. No one knew the details yet. But information was leaking everywhere, like water. Bellamy's wife made a scene at the academy, demanding cameras. Who is she to dictate rules to the school? Their son is problematic. The quiet ones are always strange. And then an article in the local paper. Anonymous, but commissioned. When charity becomes a weapon, a subtle example of how money teaches us to hide weakness under nobility. Clara read the article on her phone as she stood outside the laundry room. Her heart was beating steadily, not from fear, from concentration. That evening, when Elliot returned, he put a note on the table. They planted this in my backpack. She unfolded it. On the sheet of paper was a drawing of a child with the inscription, Return to your neighborhood. Are you okay? I don't feel anything anymore, he replied. It's like I'm just a shadow. You are not a shadow. You are light. They are just not used to the fact that it does not blind, but warms. He looked at her. And you? I was a shadow too, until I decided that was enough. She picked up the phone and dialed the number. Gideon, we need to talk. Did something happen? I don't want us to be silent anymore. The next morning they met in the garden behind the house. The trees were bare, the grass had not yet woken up after winter, but the air already carried something new. I haven't seen you like this for a long time, he said. Which? Direct, without looking back. I just remembered who I was before the whisper. What do you want, Clara? I want them to hear, not us, themselves. and to understand what it's like to be outside when the door is locked from the inside. He nodded. Then he opened his laptop and took out the documents. The school is funded by our program by 30%, plus capital investments, plus the library fund. Are you saying that we are holding them? I want to say we can stop. She was silent for a long time. Then she said, No, not just stop. We'll build our own. He looked up. School? Yes. Where no one will measure value by a family name. Where children will not have pressure, but an opportunity. And who will lead it? Me. Until I find those who will hear not only the loud ones. Are you sure? I'm sure silence is a voice too, but I don't want it to be the only thing my son hears anymore. They drank tea. He left, and she stayed, standing on the veranda, looking at the trees, at the sky. And for the first time in a long time, she felt, everything is just beginning. Spring was creeping up on Newfield, unnoticed, reluctant. The trees had not yet awakened, but the air already carried a sense of change. In the mornings, the streets were damp with fog, and it seemed as if the town were holding back, preparing for something important. At St. James Academy, everything looked the same, the stone steps, the columns, the glittering windows. But inside, an unnamed anxiety was growing. Clara stood by the car, watching Elliot walk up the driveway. His steps were steady, but there was a wariness in his shoulders, as if he was always waiting for someone to trip him up again. Everything happened fast that day. Elliot was supposed to walk home from school on his own, just 7 minutes away. But at 18:05, he didn't answer the door. 18:20. 18:40. Clara dialed him. No answer. Second time, third time. She went outside, threw a jacket over her sweater. Her sandals slammed against the asphalt. Only one thing was pounding in her head. I hope he doesn't think I won't hear. She found him at the school gates. He was sitting on a bench, hunched over. Something was playing in his headphones, and in his hands was a notebook covered with drawings of stars. He looked up, and Clara saw not tears in them, but emptiness. "Elle, are you okay?" He nodded. "Why didn't you come?" "I wanted to wait until the day was over, so that no one could talk anymore." "Say what?" "That I'm not like that. That I'm not from here. That I'm an accident." She sat down next to him and hugged him. He didn't cry. He just breathed shallowly. "Elliot, you are not an accident. You are the meaning." He laid his head on her shoulder. "I want to be where it all starts again." That same night, Clara opened her laptop. The documents were already collected, all the payments to the fund, the financing scheme, contracts, agreements. She added a folder to them. Personal testimonies. It contained conversation recordings, screenshots of correspondence, printouts from the parent chat, where they wrote about her with mockery, as if she were an outsider who dared to cross the line. In the morning, she called her husband. "Gideon, get the helicopter ready." "When?" "Today. At 12. Over the academy field." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more confident." At the PTA meeting, everything was going on as usual. Tea in china cups, macaroons, feet swinging in expensive shoes. Mrs. Quinn opened the meeting in an even voice. "Today we will discuss the contribution to the annual award for educational initiatives. As you know, Mr. and Mrs. Bellamy, last year..." The sound was interrupted. A helicopter hovered over the field outside the windows. Its rotors slowly pulled the air down, swirling the grass. Everyone stood up. Some thought it was a mistake. But when the door opened and Gideon Bellamy came out, in a gray coat without security, it became clear. This was just beginning. He entered the hall, calmly. In his hands was a folder. Clara walked next to him. "I apologize for interrupting," he began. "But I'm not here as a patron. I'm here as a father, and as a husband." There was silence in the hall. For the last 6 years, Bellamy Ventures has provided financial support to St. James Academy. Without advertising, without conditions. Today, I officially announce we are withdrawing all support. The reason is a systemic discrepancy between the stated values and reality. Clara stepped forward. She looked at the audience. She spoke calmly. Not loudly, not quietly, so that they could hear. I was among you, in a linen shirt, without a name tag. I smiled, listened, observed, and saw how upbringing turned into an exception, how talent turned into a reason for ridicule, how kindness turned into weakness. I was silent. For a long time. But silence is also a choice. I don't choose it anymore. Mrs. Bellamy, Mrs. Quinn intervened. You have no right to use your status to... I don't use status, Clara interrupted. I use voice. What my son lacked. The hall was silent, and in this silence, not only the system was collapsing. A habit was collapsing. After the meeting, Elliot ran up to her. Did you do it? We. Together. Will they be afraid of us now? No. They will look differently, and maybe one of them will finally see. The next day, the city started talking louder. Half of the parents unsubscribed from the foundation. The other half signed up for the first time. And Clara, sitting by the window, listened to Elliot talk about the telescope that they would start assembling on Sunday. What do you want to see when you look at the sky? She asked. A place where you can be yourself. She smiled. Then that's definitely where we're going. Spring had finally entered the city. The trees were beginning to wake up, first as buds, then as timid patches of green. The streets were warmer not only from the sun, but also from the voices, as if the people of Newfield were speaking a little more quietly, more attentively. On the corner of Starling Street, a building was being renovated. A sign on the scaffolding read, Bellamy Academy, opening in the fall. Clara passed by every morning. Not on purpose. It was just that the route to the library was now nearby. At the future entrance stood a boy and a girl, about 10 years old, in identical jackets, with a tablet in their hands. Excuse me, she said. Do you work here? We are the architect's children, the boy replied. Daddy said we should feel the scale. She smiled. Good start. The library smelled of paper and pears. Clara sat down by the window and opened her laptop. In front of her was the schedule. The teachers had already been selected. The letters remained. More than 500 applications from parents. Some were desperate. Some were confident. Almost all were real. She was finishing the third letter when the phone rang. Gideon. You won't believe it, he said. The director of St. James contacted me this morning. What does he want? He suggested restoring funding, like new administration, revision of values, the importance of partnership. What did you answer him? That partnership is something that starts with respect and doesn't end with an apology. She did not speak for a long time. Then she added, Don't you feel sorry? No. It's like throwing away a chair that was comfortable for 10 years, but is no longer yours. After lunch, Clara stopped by the school. Elliot was waiting at the entrance, a folder in his hands, a new confidence on his face, not loud, calm. We had a project, he said, getting into the car. We needed to figure out how to improve the school. And I suggested that every student should have the opportunity to teach a lesson twice a year, for classmates. Do you want to teach? I want to speak. For someone to hear. Because when you speak yourself, it's less scary to listen to others. She hugged him close, for the first time in a long time, without protection, without internal trembling, only with warmth. And you? He asked. What will you do when everything is revealed? Watch them grow, and don't interfere. In the evening, they went out onto the terrace. It was still chilly, but it was already possible to sit without a hat. Elliot put on a blanket, opened a notebook and began to draw, with a familiar, attentive movement. Is that you? She asked, seeing the silhouette. It's you, only not in a headscarf, but in a dress, With a book. Why with a book? Because you always know something, even when you don't say it. And you always feel something, even when you are silent. Did you notice? I always notice. He looked at her. Mom, will they ever be different? Who? Those who mocked. Those who remained silent. Maybe. But not because we will force them, but because they themselves will want to become part of something better. He closed the notebook. I want it to be here. And it's already here. Later, she pulled out the letters, the ones from the parents. One was from the mother of the boy who had once shoulder-butted Elliot in the hallway. I didn't know my son could be cruel. I didn't know I could be indifferent. Thank you for not responding with evil. And for being there. She closed the letter. She held it in her hands for a long time. Then she put it on the shelf, not as proof, as a reminder. The next morning, Elliot packed his backpack himself. He tied the laces. He went outside and said, "Can I go alone today?" "Of course, just don't rush. And be gentle." "And you?" "I will wait. Not like before, but like the light in the window." He left. Clara remained at the door, pressing her palm to the doorframe. She knew everything changes, not quickly, not immediately, but irreversibly. Autumn came early to Newfield. The leaves on the trees had begun to turn yellow in September, as if time had decided to remind them that everything was going on as usual. The air had become cleaner, sharper, and morning walks again required a scarf. The finishing touches were being put on the new school building on the outskirts of town. The hallways smelled of fresh paint, new furniture, and something else invisible. Impatience. Bellamy Academy opened on Monday. Clara had come 3 days before. She opened the doors and walked through the empty classrooms, touching the wooden desks with her palm. She stopped at the window where the leaves were slowly swirling. "Everything is so quiet," she said. "Bye," Gideon said. He was standing at the entrance in his coat with documents under his arm. But it's that silence before it starts, almost like a breath. Do you think they will feel the difference? If not, we will remind you, with warmth and attention. They went down to the assembly hall together. There was already a banner hanging there. Knowledge begins with trust. Clara ran her fingers over the fabric. Did we really do it? Yes. Because you weren't afraid to say no. I simply couldn't do otherwise. This is courage. On opening day, the city woke up earlier than usual. Parents drove their children to school with cautious excitement. Some for the first time. Some after a long pause. Volunteers stood at the gates, handing out apples and brochures. Elliot held his in his hands. He didn't read it, he just held it tightly. As a sign that he was here now, not visiting, but at home. "Are you ready?" Clara asked, sitting down on the step next to him. "I think so. And you?" "I will watch. Not as a mother, but as a person who once understood. If you can make light, don't keep it inside." He turned to her. "Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for reminding me why I'm standing here." When the first bell rang, Clara didn't go inside. She stayed outside. She watched the children enter the new building, how they held hands, how they smiled, how no one laughed from the corner. Later, in her office, the literature teacher looked in on her, young, with curly hair and an ink-stained shirt. "Can I ask you something?" "Certainly." "Do you mind if I ask Elliot to lead the literature club on Fridays?" "Why?" "Because he knows how to listen. And also, he makes pauses that you want to fit into. So, he has already become a part. He is the center." After class, Elliot waited for her at the fountain. "I had a good day." "You can hear it even in the way you sit." We had a circle of revelations. You know what I said? "What?" "That I used to think that silence was emptiness. But now I understand. Silence is a place where a voice can fall. She squeezed his hand. You've grown up. I became myself. In the evening, at home, they sat by the fireplace. Gideon leafed through the newspaper. Clara sorted through the letters. Among them was a postcard from a woman. She did not sign her name. She simply wrote, I laughed once, now I cry. Because you showed me that you can be strong and not scream. Thank you for that. Clara closed the postcard. She put it next to the cup. Then she stood up and went to the window. Look, she said. It was raining outside. Fine, transparent. It flowed down the glass as if drawing patterns. Gideon came up to her and put his arm around her shoulders. Do you think all this will change them? No, she answered. But perhaps their children. And then peace. They stood silently, listened to the rain. And it was warm in the house. And not because the heating was on, but because when light appears in one place, it will definitely reach another. Maybe not right away, but it will reach.